It's pretty common knowledge that people have been flocking to Florida for years. But did you know that half as many are fleeing Florida these days? If you're thinking about living in South Florida, you may want to watch this episode and find out what's going on. So before I talk about why people are leaving, I'd like to just do a little pitch for why people stay here, which is kind of obvious to most. Our beautiful beaches, our laid-back lifestyle. I'm going to pan the screen from the Business Development Board of Palm Beach County. You can see that we're the #1 location for young, wealthy employees to move. Our median age is 45 years. Our average temperature is 75 degrees. We have 4 Major League Baseball teams who have spring training here. 39 different cities and towns here in Palm Beach County. 107 parks spanning 8,500 acres. 35 natural areas. 375 pickleball courts. 2 public schools. We have an excellent public school system, and 2 of our high schools are ranked nationally in the top 100. And we have the #1 best economy in the U.S., the #2 best workforce in the U.S., the #2 best access to capital in the U.S., and the #5 best state for business in the U.S. So these are all really positive aspects of living in Palm Beach County. And you can look at some of my other videos to see where I talk more about neighborhoods and lifestyle. But in this video, I just really want to get to the cold, hard truth of the difficult things about living here. I know I did talk about it in a pro and con video that I did earlier. And in this video, I'm going to address specifically, anecdotally, some of the things why they're leaving Florida, and specifically Palm Beach County, Florida. So stand by. So I think cost of living in Florida and Palm Beach County, more specifically, is a major issue for a lot of people. And it kind of plays itself out in 2 ways. People who are moving here who had an impression that this was going to be financially less expensive to live than other areas maybe have been surprised that it hasn't been. And then also people that have lived here a long time that had very low home values, had purchased their homes at very low prices from 20, 30 years ago, and now are being just shocked by the prices of car insurance and homeowners insurance, which includes windstorm and flood insurance, and just the general cost of living, are being motivated by this to move to other areas, especially other areas of the South like Georgia, Tennessee, the Carolinas. We're seeing a lot of people that are leaving the state. That's where they're going. So I just thought I'd touch on some of these things because there's also like a subcategory of condos that have a whole issue unto themselves that is causing a lot of trouble for people who both want to buy condos who are moving here, but also people that live in condos and weren't really paying attention to some of these financial issues. And now they're, with some new laws that have been passed, safety type of construction laws for older condominiums, are bringing to light a lot of the weaknesses of the associations in terms of creating reserves for repairs and improvements and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to touch on some of these things so you'll know what's going on. And most of the things in this category are the insurance issues. So first of all, like car insurance, the state of Florida and Palm Beach County specifically has some of the highest auto insurance in the country. And a lot of these insurance issues are like the frog in the boiling water. It's like it just slowly goes up and then starts to get really painful. So car insurance, for one, I think people are surprised at how high our car insurance is. And then next is homeowners insurance, but homeowners insurance is kind of an umbrella term that includes windstorm and flood insurance. And so with the rise in hurricane damages and the increase in our population, the windstorm has become a major issue. And the state has been involved in it for the last couple of years. We have a insurance company of last choice, which is Citizens, that's run by the state. Although when I read the anecdotal information and my own personal experience, if you just have an average size home and you have to have windstorm insurance because you have a mortgage, your windstorm insurance can be $7, $8, $10,000 a year just for the windstorm portion of your homeowner's insurance. And now that flood insurance has gone from, it used to be a super inexpensive form of insurance. I always bought it no matter where I lived, if I was in a flood zone or not. That has regulated itself to be more in line with the risk. And so that's become a much larger cost of insurance than it used to be. And then the flood zone maps have been reevaluated. And so a lot of areas that weren't in flood zones before now are in flood zones. So even though we don't have any income tax here, the only real tax we have is property tax and sales tax, among other smaller taxes. This can take a big bite out of your budget. And then there's always the issue of property taxes, because our property values and property values are a big issue here in terms of cost of living, because our property values have gone up with so much migration to the state. It's always been that way, but the last 5 or 6 years, we've had really high increases in property values. So if you're a newcomer and you're buying a home here, you might look at the property taxes that someone is paying on their home, and they appear to be very low because that person has declared the property as their homestead. Maybe they've lived there for some time. So their increases in their assessed value and increases in their taxes have been limited by the Save Our Homes Act, which only allows the assessed value to go up 2.5% per year. And now you're buying this home and your assessment adjusts itself close to the purchase price, and you're seeing a lot more in property tax expenses than you might have anticipated. So we covered homeowners, car insurance, property taxes. And then a whole other category is if you're in a condominium or a homeowners association, so you may be living in a townhouse or a villa or a condo, but if it falls under a condo association that covers the exterior of the building, it's kind of twofold. The first issue is insurance rates on condominium associations and homeowners associations that cover the outside, the roofs, the outside of the buildings. The last 3 years, there's been as much as 50% increases in the windstorm and insurance on the exterior of the buildings. And then add to that the fact that when that condo in Miami Beach collapsed, that brought a whole new set of laws brought on by the state of Florida to address construction safety and the stability of the buildings. So now any buildings that are 3 stories or taller have to do certain reserve studies and greater level of concrete restoration and other work that might not have been budgeted for. And so people who are in especially older condominiums, but we have one that's nearby to us that's only 10 years old and they're already doing the concrete restoration. So this can be a very large assessment if your association hasn't allocated properly for it. And another aspect of that is I was just talking to a former neighbor of mine that lives in a 3-story condominium on the Intracoastal on Singer Island. And she's selling her unit because after moving there, she realizes that the association, the board had been approving not setting aside the reserves that were called for, which now they no longer can do that. The board has a responsibility to do these reserve studies and allocate for reserves accordingly. But what's happening now with these new rules with the state is many condominiums that haven't reserved properly for repairs and improvements that need to happen are, shell shock for the owners on the level of the assessments that they're anticipating having to pay. So all of that said, it really shows that condos aren't out of the question. I live in a townhouse that's part of a condo association, but it's really important now to get the financial information on the condominium, to review their reserve studies, to review the minutes of the board to see what they're anticipating. And a lot of this was never done in the past. And so as a realtor here in the area, I'm also a certified financial planner. So I always recommend to my buyers that they review all of this information before they commit to a contract. So all of these things have been coming to the surface, and people that have lived here a long time and, their budgets were different and aren't able to accommodate the additional expenses that they're experiencing. They're moving to other areas. So the weather. This is another big one. I think sometimes people move here and they think that's not going to bother them that much or something, or, maybe people that have lived here for a while, they're just tired of it. So, the beautiful part is we have gorgeous weather, especially starting in like end of October, beginning of November through April. And you can see in a couple of my other videos where I've talked about pros and cons and talked about the weather. I mean, it's fantastic. And most people come down here, to visit during the fall, winter, spring, and they experience that beautiful weather. And that makes them want the beautiful blue water, and they want to come live in Palm Beach County. Opposite to that, the downside to that is that from about sometimes starting in June, usually not till July, but say from July to can go into October, we have hot, humid, tropical, rainy weather, in addition to, we'll talk about that, but the hurricanes. But in general, even if like this year, I'm recording this in 2024, we haven't had a hurricane. We didn't have any hurricanes here in Palm Beach County last year. I mean, in my observation, living here all my life, it seems to go in like a cyclical pattern. I know the storms are getting stronger, but at the same time, technology and tracking them has gotten better. Our population has increased, so more people get affected. But I can think back to, I think it was 2000 when Andrew hit the very south end of Florida in Homestead, and that was a Category 5, and that was, really woke everybody up. I talk about this in the pros and cons video, but it did cause the state, especially Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade counties, to change their construction requirements. And so, fast forward to today, and most people will get impact windows. If you're buying in a condo that's newer, it will be built with impact windows. The construction is solid. Yes, we have hurricanes. And if you're lucky enough to not be here in the summer, to have this be your second home and you go home, then you don't really have to deal with the after effects of a hurricane. And that is just a fact of life. But it's also a fact of life for the whole state of Florida, for the Southeast, and for along the Gulf Coast too. So, that's a given. And it is something that keeps people from moving here, or they think they can deal with it, or they don't really even think about it. As a realtor, I just sold a property recently and it didn't have impact windows. And I was discussing it with the buyer, and they had moved here from California, and they really didn't even get it, the importance of it, until we'd had a conversation, and then they were on it to make those changes, because it does make your life a lot easier. But just in general, even if we had like 5 years without a hurricane, you still have to go through the summer. And we have the second highest humidity of any state in the country. So believe it or not, Alaska is number 1, Florida is number 2, and then I think it was like Louisiana and Mississippi. So we have, I think our relative humidity is like 75%. So all summer long, in fact, it's almost like people who live up north and stay in the winter because it's so cold. We don't really get out much in the middle of the day, try not to, in the hottest times of the year, because not only is it just hot from the sun, but it could be 90 degrees and feel like 110 degrees because it is so humid. You're just drenched if you go for a walk after 9 o'clock in the morning. So I hate to tell you, that is how it is. And then on top of it, we get just our seasonal, it's our rainy season through the summer. And so we get, like this year is a super wet year, and we've had like most of the month of August and September, it has like rained 2 or 3 times a day, like torrential rain almost every day. So it's kind of a fact of life, but it also is something that I observe with people that I make friends with here, or people that are my clients, and they think that they can handle it, and then they live here for a while and it's just a no-go for them. And so that is one of the reasons why people that are new to the area leave the area. And then also people that have lived here a long time, I think they just you get, I call it post-traumatic hurricane disorder, but you just are tired of it. You've been here for 30 years. You're tired of worrying about the hurricanes every season. You just are tired of not being able to go out in the summertime. And if you're lucky enough to be able to have a second home up north, that definitely helps balance it out. But a lot of people are leaving because of the weather and staying in the Southeast, but just moving to areas that have more variability in their weather. And that is another thing, is the seasonality. I mean, being a person that's lived here all my life, and my husband grew up in Maryland, he'll make fun of me because I can really, like, it's September, and even though it's still 90 degrees out and 100% humidity, I can feel fall in the air. I can feel the light changing, and I know it's fall. And same with winter and spring. We just have different seasons, different growing seasons for vegetables. And we are kind of the vegetable basket for the rest of the country during the winter months. If you're somebody that just loves fall and loves winter, and you can't live without it, could be kind of a shock for you. So that's about the weather. And, again, with the hurricanes, there's not much you can do about them. Back in the early 2000s, where we had 3 storms in 18 months came right through Jupiter, right through where I live. And it was very traumatic. And then we really haven't had any major storms hit us since then. So it does go in cycles, and it's just a fact of life. And if you prepare for it and you know what you're going to have to deal with, you just get through it. So I'm just going to take a minute to introduce myself. My name is Diane Wimbrow, and I'm a licensed realtor in Northern Palm Beach County and lifelong Florida resident. And I get calls and texts from people all the time who watch my videos and are thinking about living in South Florida, and they're just not sure where to live. And I just love getting these calls because that's the best part of my job, is helping people find the right place for themselves. So if you want to give me a call or shoot me a text, we can set up a Zoom meeting. Check out the number below, and I look forward to talking to you. And in the meantime, we'll get back to the episode. So overcrowding and traffic have become issues in Palm Beach County all throughout Florida because of the migration that's happened into our state from the Northeast and from California. Sometimes people move here from those areas and it doesn't even faze them because of the level of traffic that they're coming from. But I think a lot of lifelong Floridians, or maybe people that moved here because they had the idea of living in a laid-back beach community, wasn't quite what they thought it would be. These people are moving out of Florida to other southern states like Georgia and the Carolinas, Tennessee and Kentucky, and just trying to get away to a simpler life. I think the trick to living here in Palm Beach County is, if you're working, to find a community that's near where you work, so that you can keep your world small. And the smaller your world is, I think that's true everywhere, but the smaller your world is, the higher your quality of life. So that's why I find it very important when I'm helping people move to Florida, is to really find the right community for them. Because there's nothing worse than moving out into one of the Western communities when you work downtown or work in another part of the county, and having to deal with rush hour traffic every day can be frustrating. So I'm going to show you this map, and traffic wise, our main thoroughfares, our expressways, are really just I-95 north and south and the Turnpike. And 95 is what people typically use. If your drive's going to be more than 10 or 15 miles, you normally would use 95 if you live in the eastern communities. If you live in the western communities like Wellington or west in Jupiter, you'll probably use the Turnpike. But both of those are heavily traveled, and those are our only expressways. So the traffic can get very heavy, especially during season when our population almost doubles. Now, if you look at this map, if you're living out in Wellington and you work downtown, you use either Forest Hill Boulevard or Southern Boulevard. And Southern has become more of an expressway-like road than Forest Hill, which is more traffic lights. But this can be very heavy and difficult to navigate during the rush hour time if you're working downtown. Another issue for people with downtown that they don't really realize, downtown West Palm, is during the season, there are a lot of events that go on in the downtown area on the waterfront. And so Flagler is typically the eastern road that people will use going north and south from communities that are just south of downtown to north, like up near Palm Beach Gardens. And it can be very difficult to navigate downtown when there's events going on and roads are closed. There's extra traffic, in downtown because of the events. And that can be frustrating and something you really need to be aware of before making that decision to live in downtown. I'm going to show you this other map. Another very popular bedroom community is Boynton Beach. And a lot of people that work and live in Boynton Beach either travel down south to Boca or north to West Palm. And they have to navigate that I-95 traffic. So you can see on this map the distances from Western Boynton up and down 95. And the same is true for Jupiter. Indiantown Road in Jupiter is really like the primary thoroughfare to 95 and the Turnpike, which are very close at the Indiantown intersection. And that road is just at capacity. So the county is really working on expanding infrastructure, because what they've done is they've allowed more development than the infrastructure can handle, which seems to be common in a lot of areas. And also we have the Bright Line is fully opened and operating, and that is a express train that goes from Orlando all the way to Miami with stops through Palm Beach Gardens and West Palm Beach down to Fort Lauderdale. And then also the Tri-Rail is kind of our, that does run from northern Palm Beach County all the way to Miami, but it has a lot more stops. It's kind of the local. So and it is Eastern. So it does offer a transit option, an alternative to driving your car. And then another thing I was going to tell you is also the Eastern communities tend to have, if you can work east and live east of 95, these areas have been developed for a long time. And even though there are some new developments going in, the infrastructure and the communities are built out. And so the traffic is what it is. Now, when we get our seasonal traffic during the winter months, it does double. I mean, in the summertime, I can drive up US 1 to Jupiter and not run into any traffic. But in the wintertime, when we have so many visitors, people staying in hotels at the beach and here in their seasonal homes, the traffic can be very heavy and can be frustrating. So again, I think the trick to living in Palm Beach County is there's enough diversity in the communities that if you find the right community for you, you can live kind of a tight circular life and not have to deal with some of this overcrowding and the traffic that we're dealing with. So this next one's kind of, I don't know, it could be a little bit of a touchy one, but I'll call it Paradise Lost. You know, Florida is a young state compared to most states. And for those of us that have lived here for a long time, it really has changed. I mean, I grew up in Broward County, Pompano area, and we had farms there. When I was growing up, there wasn't even an I-95, and it was a much simpler life. And we really got to enjoy, you know, pristine beaches and wilderness, a lot more wilderness, and a lot of people that had lived here for a long time. So it was a more laid back, unsophisticated, really, and simple life. But I think that, I mean, most people that live anywhere in our country has grown so much that, except for really small towns in some states and small towns in Florida too, but Palm Beach County has really experienced a lot of growth over the last 25 years. And we really do kind of have to fight to preserve the nature of our area, not only just the nature, but, you know, the laid back nature. And so I think this has caused a lot of people that have lived here for a long time to want to leave, because Palm Beach County has some of the wealthiest communities in the country. I mean, the highest net worth zip codes are in the town of Palm Beach, of Jupiter Island at the north end of the county, Boca Raton, Delray. These are all very high net worth cities. And so as more wealthy people have moved here, and as the communities have grown and the population has grown, it's made it difficult for people to enjoy the lifestyle that they thought they were going to have. Like when they come here on vacation and you're staying in an oceanfront hotel and you're enjoying the beach and the laid back nature of a Florida vacation at the ocean. And then you move here and you end up having to live maybe in a more of a suburban community, in the Western communities. And so then you don't get to the beach that often, and it's a lot hotter out west, and the traffic can be worse. It's burst a lot of bubbles, both for people that have lived here a long time and just are tired of the change. And then also people who move here with that vacation idea in mind. And life follows you wherever you go. So that's why I'm calling this Paradise Lost. But it really is still here. And that is one of the things that I pride myself on, is when I work with clients or I help my friends or family move here. I really spend a lot of time helping them understand the different communities and understanding their vision for their life living here. And so I always say that the smaller you can keep your world, the closer you can live to where you work, or if you're retired, to live in a community that suits your lifestyle, then you can sort of preserve some of that paradise feeling and not feel overwhelmed by the growth of the area. So this is kind of a short topic, but I think it's an important one. And I still believe in the beauty of where we live and the nature of our community. But you do have to get used to that in the summertime, it's a little bit more laid back and quiet. But when season kicks in, say around November, and our population can double in some of our communities, lines get long at restaurants and beaches are crowded, and it can be kind of disappointing for some people. This is something to think about. If your vision for yourself moving here is based on a vacation, you might want to come and live here for a little while, or try a few different communities until you find the one that is right for you, so you can make your own little slice of paradise here in Palm Beach County. And on that note, I'm just going to read this, something that I saw someone post online, and I think it's true for anywhere, for people that love where they live. You came here from there because you didn't like it there, and now you want to change here to be like there. You are welcome here, only don't try to make here like there. If you want to make here like there, you shouldn't have left there in the first place. So there's just a little humor. And that's just a little small truth to carry with you, and to remember, if you are moving here, that it is what you make of it. So I hope you found this helpful. Actually, my nickname is Pollyanna, so I don't mean to be the Debbie Downer with the information that I just gave you. But I think it's really important when you're considering moving to somewhere new in the country, or even just within the state of Florida, that you really know what you're getting yourself into, so you can be happy with your choice. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments section. And if you'd like to chat, don't hesitate to text or call so we can schedule a Zoom meeting. And in the meantime, hit the like and subscribe button so you'll know every time we have a new video on living in South Florida.